Are we looking at the best $50 scale on the market right now? Or should MHW-3BOMBER have stuck to the basics with this one instead? Let's find out. Enjoying good coffee at home should not be a luxury. So today we're looking at the Formula Smart Scale, which packs some interesting smart features in a very affordable tool. Now, don't pull the trigger until you watch this video, because I'll provide my Happy Bean rating at the end to help you determine if this should be in your coffee bar or not. Let's go. The Formula Smart Scale is surprisingly cheap for what it promises to do. For just over $50, the smart features included sound great for beginners on a budget. However, I felt that the decisions made with this tool's design are puzzling and basically left me scratching my head. But let's start with the build quality and design. The Formula Scale is big and mostly made out of plastic, apart from the top panel, which is frosted heat-resistant stainless steel. This is the main cost-cutting measure, as they don't have to engineer all of the tech in a compact format and also avoid spending a lot on metal or glass. It includes a silicone pad for protection, a USB-C charging port, and an LED screen that's positioned at an angle, which I really like as there's constant visibility and it's also great for content creation. It's worth mentioning that although it's an USB-C, you should not use fast charging adapters and stick to a 5-volt adapter that is not included with the scale. It has a button on the back to turn it on and off with or without sound, but you can just leave it on and control it on the front. We'll take a closer look at this later on. Although it is sold as a drip and espresso scale, I find it too bulky for espresso. If your drip tray is as high as the one on my Gaia Classic Pro, and even if it were lower, the height of the scale makes it very inconvenient to use when pulling shots, unless you have a bottomless portafilter. They do sell an adapter so you can keep the scale out of the machine, but it costs almost as much as the scale itself. For drip though, it's perfectly sized, so this is what I use it for the most. Now, how precise is the Formula Scale? It can accurately measure 0.1 grams with a minimum weight detection of 0.3 grams. This is more sensitive than other $50 scales out there. The reaction time is not very quick, but I think it's decent. Here's the reaction time of the Formula compared to a higher-end scale. But MHW-3BOMBER went one step ahead and implemented 2 smart modes that increase the perceived value while alienating a huge segment of baristas, especially beginners. And this is my own opinion, as I know many will disagree. In addition to the modes, there's one key functional decision made by the brand that I just can't understand. And before we get there, if you're getting value from this video, please subscribe to my channel so I can keep making content to help you elevate your coffee experience at home. Now, the Formula Scale has standard coffee scale functions like a timer, tearing, and auto tear present in their different modes. But when you use it manually, just looking at it, where would you say I should tap to tear this carafe, for example? Obviously the T here, right? But no, that's a timer button. I'm not a scale expert, but this is a first for me. To tear in the Formula Scale, you actually have to hit the playing logo here, which isn't an obvious button and also happens to be the one you use to navigate the modes and functions. This surely isn't intuitive. In fact, it requires a shift in the way you generally use a scale to get used to it. Several times I hit the timer by mistake when I am meaning to tear. Of course, once you get used to it, it stops being an issue. I understand MHW-3BOMBER's tendency to over-branding their products, so they had to have the logo here and make it functional. But I don't see any logical reason to program these functions backwards. Now, let's try the smart modes. The first mode is Smart Drip. You can access it by double-tapping the bomber plane until it lights this dripper icon. I'll try it out making a pour-over with her full pour-over set and grind using the Blade R3 grinder, which I made a review about. I'll leave the link up here if you want to see it. Alright, we're ready here, so let's stir the carafe in the dripper and drop the powder. It's now recording in grams, as you can see here, but for the Smart Drip, this is how it works. Once you tap the T for timer, it enters in liquid detection mode and it changes from grams to ratio. When I start pouring the water, it's gonna show me 1:3 ratio for my bloom size. Here's my main pet peeve. Granted, measuring by ratio is a pretty accurate and efficient way of making pour-over and following recipes, but it's not the way people make pour-overs out there. So for a complete beginner, this might be very confusing. And for more experienced baristas, at least in my opinion, it's simpler to calculate ratios with weight than to interpret weight Looking at a ratio. If you prefer using ratio though, this scale would be perfect for you. If it weren't for the following issue. Once you're done with your brew, you just need to pick it up and it'll show you the final weight of the coffee. Pretty cool and everything, but if your recipe requires agitation or swirling, you can't do that anymore, as it will reset everything and ruin the brew. Even the slightest touch to the scale or the dripper will trigger this, as it will register the weight being lifted. This was very frustrating to me. It ruined several of my tests, and sometimes it was just slight vibrations of me looking at the stuff in the counter or touching everything that triggered the function. So honestly, I just stopped using this mode altogether. With espresso, it's a similar story, although I don't find it as annoying. This is how it goes. Double tap the plane to go to the Smart Espresso mode, as shown with this small tamper icon, and set your portafilter to tare. Once you grind your coffee beans, set it back on the scale and keep the timer to start the liquid detection mode. Here, you can lift it without issue. When your puck is ready and you're about to pull, set the scale with your shot glass or mug, if your machine allows. However, keep in mind you've got 2 minutes to get this done or the scale will turn off automatically. The scale here functions the same way. I ground 18 grams, so I shall stop at a 1:2 ratio because that's the ratio I want to use. Although the function is similar, it's less of an issue as compared to pour over. It's a pretty quick calculation and still very accurate. And I find it's more common to pull shots based on ratio anyways. Now, with all of this said, let's recap before I assign a happy bean score to this scale so you understand why I'm scoring it this way. This is a well-built budget scale with good sensitivity and accuracy. It's big for espresso machines, but still a solid option for beginners. And the angled screen is a nice design touch. So far so good, right? However, the function buttons work backwards, the smart modes can be confusing or frustrating, and some of the features might prevent you from using it the way you might be used to if you're already experienced with coffee making. Which is why I give this scale a happy bean rating of 2.9. Don't get me wrong, this is not a bad rating. It was hard for me to land on this number because on the one hand, you're getting a lot more than with other scales at this price point, and the drawbacks I mentioned just require a learning or adjustment curve. But on the other hand, I believe it should just have been simpler. They could have added functionalities like the ability to select if you want to use ratio or weight on the smart modes. Maybe even made the effort to make it slimmer to fit more espresso setups. I know people will be willing to pay even twice as much for something like this. So if you don't mind weighing by ratio or using the scale without the smart modes, it is a pretty solid option and will give you what you need for a great price. If you want to check it out in more detail, there's a link in my description. But maybe what you need to make better coffee is not a scale, but a good manual grinder or the right kettle. If that's the case, go check out these videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you there.